The following program was paid for by Templar Real Estate. The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of the staff and management of WMTR. As always, it is advisable to consult a professional before making a major decision. It's time now for the Templar Real Estate Talk Show. Here's your host for the program, Joseph J. Zoppi.
Hi, welcome to the Templar Real Estate Talk Show. My name is Joseph J. Zoppi, a real estate investor, consumer advocate, author, and managing partner of Templar Real Estate Enterprises. To date, I'm still recording this from my home. I've been doing that for the last 6 weeks, I think, 7 weeks. So it's been a while, and I know we're all getting frustrated with staying home. At least things are opening up now, which is a good thing. You could reach us at TemplarCashForHouses.com. That's TEMPLAR cashforhouses.com, or you call us at 973-315-7990, and we can answer any questions you may have or email us from our website. If you want a specific topic discussed, I'll be more than happy to address it if I have time. So please leave any type of message or call us directly. My company is a real estate investment firm. We buy houses for cash. We purchase apartment buildings. We do joint ventures with other real estate investors. We loan money for rehabs and provide transactional or gap funding as well. We work with individuals that want to invest with us in single-family houses up to apartment buildings. We do not speculate, and we're very protective of our funds and our investors' money. We're not a brokerage, and I'm not a real estate agent. I have individuals on staff that are agents, and if they want to list through the traditional multiple listing services, we'd be more than happy to. But normally we're buying houses for cash or we're doing investments. The show will go over everything there is about real estate, those things that impact real estate. We'll talk about our rehabs, some of our investments, what went well, what did not go well, and how we corrected those things. We'll talk about the economy, interest rates, anything that's going to impact real estate. Real estate is one of the biggest investments anyone has, so it's important that everyone knows as much as possible about it. This show is based a lot on my experiences, but also my opinions, okay? It's only an opinion. I always strongly recommend that everybody does their own research and looks at things from a very balanced perspective. Again, when I talk about this all the time, I say, if you research something, make sure you understand where the author is coming from. Do they have a slant towards one view or another view? So you always want to get an opposing view to really truly understand what it is, because usually it's somewhere in the middle. It's not to one end or the other end, as an article would state. So that's very, very important. When you're looking at researching for an individual online, you might get some bad reviews. You have to balance that out with the good reviews and how many there are, and so on and so forth. Especially when you're looking at anything to do with politics, that's really where it really gets kind of muddy. So just beware when you're doing the research and to make sure it's really balanced. Last week when I was closing out, I wanted to give a bigger tribute to those individuals that served in this country, for this country, went to war and was in active duty now or in the past, and especially those that had passed away, died for our country. I was thinking about it this weekend, and you have all these individuals that died for this country, and also the families that gave up their young sons and daughters and what they're left with, the emptiness of that. And it's not always stated. So, you have the son or daughter that died, and then you have the family that's left. And, it's really, I think, really tough. And I'm very blessed. I have 2 kids, and, they're doing great. But, when you give up your son or daughter to the military, you never know what's going to happen. I had a individual I knew in high school, and he went into the Navy. And, I was in college after 2 years, 3 years, and I heard about him that he was in the Navy and he was throwing garbage overboard, which he was supposed to do. And somehow something got stuck on his leg and he just got thrown into the ocean and drowned. It was just, it's crazy. It's a very, being in the military is a dangerous thing, no matter if you're not shooting at someone or getting shot at, but just doing regular things, and it's I think disheartening for those individuals that experience those losses. It really is. And I think the other thing that, I think about is the government. And, I don't think the government supports our military veterans like they should. And this is for, years and years and years. It's always been that way. And I think they're, looked at maybe not as expendable, but, there's well intentions, but it doesn't deliver into something that really helps those veterans. A long time, the VA has always had some issues and challenges. I've heard from numerous stories it has gotten better over the years, but it's probably not still where it should be. And then you have all these individuals that come back out of the service and they have problems integrating into society, and all the homelessness of different veterans. So I think it's something that, we always have to really think about, and however we could support them, I think is really, really important. So this week I'd like to talk about a few things. I'd like to talk about some of our rehabs that we did this week, some negotiation that we've done, and what you should look out for when you're negotiating and either buying a house or selling a house. Also, I'm looking for apartment buildings to purchase, preferably 100 units or more. So anyone that knows or of anything, if you're interested in selling your properties, apartments, preferably 100 units or more. If it's less, I'd still consider it definitely, but I prefer anything over 100 units. If you know anyone that's interested in selling, please contact me. I will give you $1,000 finder's fee if I do purchase the property or a house. I'll still provide a $1,000 finder's fee for any information you provide to me if I do finish the transaction. So if anyone knows of any apartment buildings or houses, please contact us so we could follow up. We won't use your name unless you want us to, but we're always discreet with everything that we do. Next thing I'd like to talk about is, again, we buy houses for cash, so we've gotten a lot of inquiries about that, and especially with where the market is, there's a lot of trepidation with individuals where the market's going, where it's not going, and a number of individuals want to sell their house fast, and we're more than happy to work with homeowners on that. Also, like I said before, we would be more than happy to list your property. We're very good at that, but that's not our sweet spot, but we do that. If The one area we just don't do as much is we don't usually find houses for individuals. That's something we really don't do. But if you want to sell your house, definitely, either through the multiple listing service or for us to buy it for cash, we'd be more than happy to look into it and give you a fair offer. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is our inspections. So we had inspections this week, and we've been having them for the past couple of weeks for this one property we have. So we went finally through plumbing a couple of weeks ago, and we finally passed. And then came the framing part, because we were putting in a new basement and finishing it. So it passed framing, which was great. And then we have where, because it's in the basement, you have to put insulation. So we have another township official inspector coming by to look at the installation, that it's installed properly. And then once that's done, then we can start closing up the walls, putting the drywall in the basement and everything else we need to do with it. So that's, moving along pretty quickly, and we're really happy with it that we finally could get things moving after correcting those issues I had with the previous plumber. So that we lost about 6 weeks on that, which is a lot of time for a house just to stay idle, and we couldn't do any work on it. But now we're moving forward with that, which we're really happy with. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is negotiations. So we're selling a house right now, and I negotiated a price with an individual and came upon a price. We agreed to it. Then he comes back later and stated that it had to be less. I begrudgingly said okay to it based on a quick sale, because he said it was going to be a cash offer. So traditionally, cash offer, sometimes you'll take a discount, depends, because you don't have to worry about the individual qualifying for a loan. So that's always a good thing, because you don't want to take it off the market then put it back on, especially in these times right now. So I said yes, and then he said afterwards, after I agreed to it, he said no, it wasn't going to be a cash offer anymore. So right after that, I was very leery of the whole situation. And, I've been very cautious progressing further because of that. So, he changed things twice on me. So I was very concerned about what other things were going to change. So for me, that's a big thing. And I highly recommend that you don't do things like that, because all of a sudden you might have the homeowner being resentful. Now, I'm not resentful, but I'm very cautious. So I treat this as a business transaction. So, but I'm very, very leery. Now, when you negotiate that way, again, the seller might get very upset, and then there start to be adversarial type things going on. And I do not recommend negotiating that way. Not at all. I always like to be upfront and, have them understand where you're coming from. But you really shouldn't pull too many surprises, preferably none, to say the least, because then all of a sudden the seller might tighten up and not give as much and be as flexible, and it goes the other way around. The buyer, if you start twisting the screws too much on them, they're going to feel the same way. So I'm closing up on this segment, and I'll continue with this discussion in a few minutes, okay? Thank you very much.
Life can be a roller coaster, and sometimes you need to sell your house fast. That's why there's TemplarBuysHouses.com. Maybe you're downsizing, getting a divorce, having health or financial issues. If so, head to TemplarBuysHouses.com. TEMPLAR BuysHouses.com. TemplarBuysHouses.com will buy your house quickly and without hassle. If you've inherited a house that is vacant, contact TemplarBuysHouses.com. Dealing with them is easy and quick. No high-pressure sales tactics, and you won't have to fix up the house. They will buy your house as is. You pick the closing date and when you move out. No commissions and no hassles. Contact TemplarBuysHouses.com. TEMPLAR BuysHouses.com with an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. Call 973-315-7990. That's 973-315-7990.
Be sure to listen to the podcast of the Templar Real Estate Talk Show. Find it now at TemplarBuysHouses.com.
Hello, welcome back to the Templar Real Estate Talk Show. My name is Joseph J. Zoppi, Managing Partner of Templar Real Estate Enterprises. So as I was saying in the last segment about negotiating, I always think you should be upfront and fair with that and be as transparent as possible. I understand, there's always that idea that, you got to play your cards close to the vest, and I don't disagree with that to some extent, but I think on the flip side, there's certain areas where you need to be upfront, and I think when you do that, I think there's a lot more respect. Now, one of the things that I prefer to do is deal directly with the buyer or the seller. I do not like, and I'm not saying I recommend this, but because I'm an investor, but dealing directly with them, because sometimes when you start dealing with a attorney, things, you start it gets very adversarial sometimes. So, you got to balance it out. So if you have an agent that, the two agents work together, I strongly recommend that. Once you start getting the attorneys involved, I think they're great and you need to use an attorney, but sometimes it might come across a certain way. And, certain attorneys are very good at making it mellow and it not too bad, and other ones aren't as good. So I highly recommend doing one-on-one, or preferably, for most people, working with an agent as an intermediary. I think that's the best. It seems to work best, and things don't get too out of hand. Like I said before, the individual that I was dealing with, changed a couple of things in terms of the price. I gave in on that, and then afterwards I find out, to my surprise, that it's not a cash deal and he had to go for a mortgage. So again, that's, additional time that I'm going to be holding the property. I wasn't planning on that. So, my antennas were up. So what I did is, before we even engaged into a signed agreement, I wanted a inspection done, because I didn't know if I signed an agreement, then he did the inspection, and then he would add a long list of 100 things that he wanted me to fix. Even though it is a good property, you never know what an inspector is going to come back with. So I wanted to make sure that the list wasn't long, or if it was, he didn't want a lot back. So after the inspection, it was only 2 or 3 things, and they were, for the most part, fairly minor. So, I was happy with that, and I said, okay, let's engage and let's go forward. But I made it also clear there's not going to be any additional changes that your attorney wants, correct? And he said no. So I didn't want him to submit everything and say, well, my attorney now wants this, because then that wouldn't have went too good for him, because I would definitely said something and put the brakes on the entire transaction. So again, you have to watch where things are, especially in this market though. If you get an offer, you try to seize on it. If it's a halfway decent offer or a good offer, you go for it. We've always been that way, even in the best of times, because you never know what's going to happen. And if you get, money in hand is really, really good, so if you're going to be closing, you go forward with it. You might have, taken a little bit less, but again, when you have a big asset like real estate, a property, a house, and something happens in the economy, that's unforeseen, or even if it is foreseen, then all of a sudden you're stuck. Now, you have, this pandemic. I continue to say, even though the market's riding high, it's a lot higher than I was expecting. I think eventually there's going to be a pullback, and then I think prices might change. Now, housing prices are pretty high right now, and they're staying strong. And the biggest reason for that is there's not a lot on the market. So you do not have a lot of sellers jumping in right now. There's a lot of caution. But there's properties out there, and people that want to buy them are, paying, close to full asking or somewhere around there. So that's a good thing. But I don't know how long more that's going to last. And, if you start looking at the news and start reading some of the undertones, you got to start connecting the dots. So right now, market's very high, and you have, some heavy unemployment. Now, people might be coming back, so that's a good thing. But if you read certain things about certain businesses, they're either, filing for bankruptcy, things like that. So you have to start putting that in perspective. And you have to remember that when one thing happens, there's a ripple effect to it. And that's very, very important. So, case in point, say a large company goes out of business, then those individuals obviously are going to go on unemployment, and it's going to affect, it's a downstream effect. If the company is in a particular town, those surrounding businesses are going to get hurt. So there's always that ripple effect. Right now, I was hearing something about car sales. Car sales are down, it was like 50%. And so they were expecting car sales to increase, but they're not. And for the last 3 or 4 weeks, they have not. And they're down, I think, 25% for each of the past few weeks. So you have to think about it. You come out of this pandemic, there's a lot of apprehension. Who's going to buy a car? Now, there's certain people who have to buy a car. My car lease expired. It's broken down. I need a new car. There's a number of factors. But again, there's trepidation that individuals are not going to be buying those high-priced ticket items. And it's just going to continue to ripple those types of things throughout the economy. So, right now, President Trump and his team are pushing hard to use different things to incentivize businesses to be hiring and to grow. And that's great. He's doing a lot of really good things with that. But there's going to be a number of headwinds. And I think, you can't change something on a dime. I think you could, push it along and decrease the amount of time it's going to take for a recovery. But I think, the market's going to go down. I'd be very, very, very surprised that it isn't. And I've read some other articles, and, it's the same thing that I was believing in terms of, where the market is now and where it's going are two different things. You have to look at all the big box stores, like I said, these restaurants, in terms of getting hit hard. A number of individuals that have rental properties for different tourist locations, tourist attractions, are not receiving any income. And, so that puts a burden on them. And a number of these individuals have, their primary residence, and they might have a couple of rentals. So, just think about it. You have your primary residence and you have some rentals and you're not getting any income coming in, but you're going to have to pay the mortgage, or even if you have some forbearance and you push out the mortgage, there's still, you're going to have to pay, some property taxes and other things in terms of, upkeep, so on and so forth. So someone that was doing very good previously could be in a lot of hurt personally, and they might have to draw on their savings or other things as a result of that. So again, this ripple effect. Now you have individuals that have Airbnb houses that they rent out, and a lot of them are trying to sell them now because they don't know when it's going to come back. And, so they're worried. So they're going to be selling their properties. So that's where you'll start seeing a snowball effect, and hopefully it won't be too bad. But I think September. I think maybe after the dust settles, October, and also October is I think the worst month for stocks for some reason. One of them is because you go into November, which is elections usually. And there's always that apprehension. So October's traditionally one of the worst months, or the worst month for stocks. So we'll see where that goes. But just be wary of that, and if you could be in an all-cash position now, I'd strongly recommend it. I've said that time and time again. Mark Cuban, I think, is going mostly all cash because he wants to see what's going to happen, and that's what a lot of the very sophisticated investors do. They put a all cash position, or a position that has a lot of cash, waiting for the downturn, and then snatch things up at a better price. Warren Buffett's sitting on, I don't know how many billions of dollars right now, I forget, and he's just waiting to purchase things. So right now he said that he's not getting any calls because right now, banks and businesses are trying to negotiate and trying to do deals, and the Fed is pushing money into the economy. But there'll be a time when Warren Buffett says that he'll be getting the calls, and then he knows that's the right time. So right now, it's not the right time for him. So right now, with everything going on, with rentals, as I've been talking about, back in May 6th, they reported that about 80% of the tenants have made full or partial payments of their rent, which is really good. The previous month for April was about 78%. So it ticked up a couple of percent, but that's good. That's still 20% that hasn't paid. And, that's still a very big concern, especially if you own a couple of properties, and you don't have the reserves to handle that. We always make sure that we have lots of reserves in case of a downturn, in case of any unforeseen problems. But some individuals can't afford that, and you have individuals that have a property that's worth $1 million. I read an article, and there's a lot of individuals in that one property that can't pay the rent. And now she can't pay her mortgage payments. So it is a worrisome thing to do and to be, and it is just, it's a big concern, on my side and a lot of people's side because of that. The other thing that's going on is that right now, unemployment, there's about 3.2 million are unemployed. So that's the claims that were filed at the end of April. So there's always a lag in terms of when they're reporting and stuff. We should be hearing about another one for May soon. So, credit card use is down, which is really good because a lot of times, you've you buy on credit. You always buy on credit. So there's that apprehension. And again, that comes down to a ripple effect. Like I said, people are putting less on credit cards, so they're buying less. So how's that impacting other businesses? The other thing that, there's been this talk about is rent strikes. So rent strikes are not legal. No matter what anyone says, they're not legal. So you just have to be wary of that. So if you hear people saying, well, we should do rent strikes, that is illegal. And a number of individuals I've spoken to, landlords and things like that, have, worried about getting paid for their rents. And, a number of different things could come out of this in terms of trying to set up a payment plan, hardship plan for those tenants, give tenants different options, including, show them where there's additional jobs opportunities, how to collect government stimulus checks, local charity donations, and obviously unemployment options. Some individuals are often a 5% discount if rents are paid in advance. But again, that's based on the approval of the landlord. But that's always a great technique to try to get the money quicker. And, you have to let, the tenants know that there is a moratorium, but eventually that moratorium will come off and that they have to pay the rent. Or they have to somehow get government assistance to help pay that rent. And that's very important. There's a rent strike, like I said, that's been bantered around on the internet, and it's like hashtag cancel rent. And that's just, like I said, it's just illegal. The Southern California Rental Housing Association responded to those statements and said, we're very greatly concerned about the discussion taking place of a potential rent strike, which would not only be illegal, but devastating for small and independent operators in the rental housing industry. And that's what I was saying. You have these mom and pop or organizations, companies that own these properties, and not to pay the rent is really something that could hurt them really personally and their kids, and it's a bad thing. And they're always going to have to pay it. And even with some forbearance, there's still property tax that needs to be paid, and property tax in the Northeast is very high, to say the least, plus other parts of the country. But in Jersey, it's very high. So even with the forbearance of a mortgage, that doesn't stop, for the property tax to be paid. So, those things always have to be looked at. And, not all landlords are super rich. They're just trying to make ends meet themselves. So I'd like to thank you again for listening. My name is Joseph J. Zoppi, managing partner of Templar Real Estate Enterprises. And if you have any questions, please give us a call. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Life can be a roller coaster, and sometimes you need to sell your house fast. That's why there's TemplarBuysHouses.com. Maybe you're downsizing, getting a divorce, having health or financial issues. If so, head to TemplarBuysHouses.com. TemplarBuysHouses.com. TemplarBuysHouses.com will buy your house quickly and without hassle. If you've inherited a house that is vacant, contact TemplarBuysHouses.com. Dealing with them is easy and quick. No high-pressure sales tactics, and you won't have to fix up the house. They will buy your house as is. You pick the closing date and when you move out. No commissions and no hassles. Contact TemplarBuysHouses.com. TemplarBuysHouses.com. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. Call 973-315-7990. That's 973-315-7990.
Be sure to listen to the podcast of the Templar Real Estate Talk Show. Find it now at TemplarBuysHouses.com.
The preceding program was paid for by Templar Real Estate. The views and opinions expressed are not necessarily those of the staff and management of WMTR. As always, it is advisable to consult a professional before making a major decision.